Welcome to episode whatever of the Madison podcast. I am your host, New York's favorite British mortgage broker, whether you like it or not, Ben Lavender, the scavenger. We have very special guest. Kindly introduce yourself, sir. Tell everyone who you is, who you be, what you do, why you do
all
it.
that good stuff. I am Chris Reimers, also known as @Chris Your Realtor on Instagram. I am let me go through the list.
Do it.
Real estate broker in New York and Florida. Real estate team leader. Real estate coach and licensed real estate instructor for the state of New York. Do a lot of stuff in real estate.
Yes, and apparently my twin. You know, this is a freaking mirror image. You know, you, me, Andrew Tate should get in a room together.
I'm like, which one's which?
Yeah, and see who could be more of a misogynist. I think Tate will win that one.
Yeah, I definitely won't.
Yeah, that we stay away from. But welcome, man. Good to have you.
Thank you,
Obviously, you and I have known each other for, I don't know how long. Like maybe
Since
5, 6 years,
say,
like when we were back in Valley Stream.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I remember you came by. A lot has changed.
A lot.
A lot has changed.
For both of us.
Talk to us about that. Tell us about yourself and like what your journey has been like. We'll go through that briefly before we dive into some actual like super interesting stuff.
The good stuff. So
it's all good stuff.
It's all good stuff. Yeah. So for me, a lot has changed recently. I uprooted my team. We left the last company that we were at. We were with KW, Keller Williams. We're now over at EXP, which is also. Yeah, I mean, I see that's the trend where kind of everybody's
the trend for a while now. Yeah,
it's been a while. They've been tugging at me for years now, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do it. No, I'm not gonna do it. But interestingly enough, what sparked the move was the fact that I did end up getting my Florida real estate license, and I was weighing out my options as to like where am I gonna go when I'm out in Florida, and then I ended up getting introduced to the whole EXP world concept again, and I was like, all right, let me have the conversation. And then I was just like, oh well, if I want to hang my license in Florida, how does that work? And then they started explaining like the cap situation and the money, and I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense, especially being licensed in 2 states. That and me just kind of thinking growth, and I'm like, I want to start expanding my team. It only makes sense for me to align myself with the company that's going to allow me to make the most money and really benefit the agents that I work with the most.
Wait, so how does that differ from the previous company?
So in terms of cap, it's one cap no matter what states you're licensed in. So if I wanted to go get licensed in every 50 state, that one cap that I'm paying would be inclusive of all the states that I'm licensed in. So I'm like, oh, if I'm doing transactions here, over there, over here, I'm not paying a separate cap in this state than this state. So keeping overhead down for me.
The cap, what at EXP is what, 16 grand?
16. Yeah. 16 grand as opposed to I was paying just around 30.
So Chris, for people that don't know, can you explain to them what a cap is actually?
Great question. So what a cap is, basically you pay out a certain amount of money to your company, to your broker rather, and then once you pay out that money, you keep 100% for the rest of the year, of your commissions for the rest of the year.
Yeah. And most companies, I imagine, are higher or don't even like have a cap. You're stuck at that certain split, right?
Bingo. And it's crazy because I've been seeing like a lot of companies, because in my switch, I've been having a lot of conversations with agents. And I think it's weird because usually the time of the year where a lot of agents start to make their transitions and change brokerages, it's like the end of the year because everybody's like, I want to wait to the end of the year or finish out my business. But I've been seeing a lot of people this summer like making moves and just having conversations with them as to like.
Why do you think that is? I have a theory, but I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure our theories are right in alignment. But it's crazy because I'm like, why is everybody leaving? But in having conversations with them, I'm like, well, what other companies are you talking to? And just like kind of hear some of the splits that these companies, a lot of the traditional companies as well, the brokerages, I'm like, man, when are you guys going to get with the times? Like no caps, high splits to the broker. I'm like, there's so many alternatives. You don't think that this is going to die out in the next like 5 to if even 10 years with you not allowing these opportunities to your agents? I'm like, there's way too much competition. It's crazy. So I was like, I got to get in here sooner than later because I already missed the boat from like 2 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, you're on it now, and that's going to be the trend. And I agree that is like it's going to be either or. It's either like massive splits and they provide everything. Like I think, what is it, like Redfin, I think they give the agent salaries, is that correct?
I've heard that, yes.
Yeah, I think like that's going to be a trend, or it's going to be the opposite and like max commission and you do everything.
Yeah.
But in terms of what is your theory as to why everyone is doing the switch now?
The market's changing, and when the market changes, your business changes, and everybody accounts that to the broker.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, it's not the broker.
Yeah, it's you.
you're gonna do,
to be fair.
Yeah. But it's like you're going to do your business wherever you're going to do your business. You shouldn't be focusing on so much what company am I going to in terms of where am I going to do the most business. It's what company is going to give me the resources so that I can grow my business the most. And people think like, oh, I just need to change my company and then everything is going to change for me. No, you have to change yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is a harsh reality that no one really wants to face. Yeah. It's on you. I mean, I know people even in like the mortgage space who are at terrible companies, but they do very well because they're strong, they know what they're doing, they know how to structure their files properly and manage their team. And then it's the opposite. Like you have loan officers at like the best mortgage companies who don't know how to structure a deal to save their life and they fumble. So it's all on you, man. But I think accountability is something that people lack these days. And I don't know, like, can you teach that? No, right? It's either you have it or you don't.
Yeah, it's hard because it's like all mindset. So even as a coach, like that's the biggest thing, getting people to buy into accountability, coaching team members. I'm like, come on, man, you got to like stay on top of your stuff. And even sometimes holding people accountable, it's still like, I don't have any kids and I don't want them. So just do what you need to do.
Wait, so Chris, for coaching, do you coach all the people on your team or is that like a separate thing that you do for others or both? Like, how does that work?
So when I was at KW, I had a coaching program within the company that was something that I had to give up when I left because it was strictly associated with the company. But of course, the people on my team, they're getting the same, well, they're getting more coaching than my actual coaching clients because they're on my team. So they get a little bit more of me than the average agent that I would coach, but I am in the process of putting together my own coaching program. I mean, I have all the materials there. It's just about actually figuring out a launch date and getting people enrolled.
Well, like into like an online program? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's gonna have to be online because I'm not trying to be at any one specific location.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could do it online, you could do it in person. It has to make sense for you, right? You can't just do it for 1,000 people for free. It's
definitely not.
Or join the team.
Or join the team.
Yeah. So, Chris, what do you feel that makes you different as a team leader, right? Like, why you? Because obviously you've been a team leader for a while, right?
Yeah.
So. I can tell that you enjoy it. You genuinely really enjoy it. I think that's
fun.
Something that separates you. Yeah, it's like it's what's the word? There's like this intrinsic thing that you really get from bringing other people up as opposed to like just yourself. But what is it? I mean, maybe I just hit it, but is that like the main thing for you that you really enjoy? Or
honestly, I feel like it really, for me, it feels like that's what I'm supposed to be doing because, kind of going through that list that I said, I'm a team leader, I'm a coach, I'm an instructor. So it all kind of ties back to that piece of training, leadership, and really pouring into people. That's something that's important to me.
Pouring into people.
Yeah, and I feel like
I like that.
I don't want to say that's what separates me as a team leader or as a coach because, everybody's going to say that. But I think just the way that
not everyone's going to say that everyone's going to say that. It means that you really actually think about it.
Yeah. But what I think it is for me is I feel like what I've seen with a lot of my coaching clients from in the past, as well as the girls that are on my team, I'm not like your traditional coach. Like you'll go online, you'll see all these big people that, you need to do it this way. You need to say the scripts this way. And I'm like, that's a bunch of nonsense. I'm like, that's not really what's going to work. Here's what you're going to say. Here's how you're going to approach it. It's less of, and I think this is what separates me. It's less of like that stereotypical, well, just say this or just say this, follow this script. Because I look at a lot of these scripts that a lot of these coaches and training programs put out, and I'm like, this is not going to work. Like if you say this to somebody, especially in New York, they're going to be like, you're scripting me.
To it. You beat me to it. Like, New Yorkers can smell from a mile away.
Like stop scripting.
The very second, like, you're not genuine. Like, it happened actually, like, it was one of the calls while you were waiting. Someone called me and they started a script. I didn't even, like, yell at them. I just hung up and blocked them. And I was just like, I don't have time for this. This is stupid. And we get so many calls from vendors a day. You, me, everyone, right? It's so frustrating. Like,
Yep.
I think, Chris, when it comes to sales in general, and like back in the day when I started in the business almost 10 years ago now, I was listening to every salesperson on the planet and like tons of like Grant Cardone and like all these guys. And like for me, the mentality is what really helped. But I learned that like actual scripts don't do much. It's just you have to communicate effectively. I think the best word is communication, and your ability to really listen to what someone's saying and then respond to them. Because if you're just throwing out some pitch at them and it doesn't pertain to them whatsoever, you're going to have limited to zero success.
You know what's so crazy about that? The fact that I'm over at EXP, a lot of these EXP agents are known for the very pushy, salesy approach. And I'm like, the reason that I aligned myself with the people that I did at that company is because they were different. And what they did differently that I liked is something, it's like a key principle within my business is lead with value first. Care about what the person needs first. What they did, they came to me and they're like, well, where do you see yourself going? What are your goals? How can we help you get to your goals? And I'm like, wow, it's about me. It's not just, here's the splits, revenue share, here's what you're gonna do stock, here's what you're gonna get here. And I'm like, like it makes sense. And all the other stuff, the perks of the company were secondary. Is what do you need to do? And then I can tell you how the resources that we have can help benefit you by being here. And I'm like, thank you. If everybody had that mindset when it came to like sales calls, they'd be so much more effective. It's like, find out what the person's problems are and then you solve it. You don't go in and say, here's what your problem is. That's rude. And a lot of people don't take that well.
And again, especially New Yorkers. But and to people listening to that, to what you just said and what I just said, it can sound like some hippie, like kumbaya type thing. Like, we just care about you. But what people have to understand is that it is a better sales tactic than pushing. Like, you don't even want to call it a tactic. It's just listening to what someone wants, as you just said, and responding and saying, like, making sure that the goals are aligned within the company and your specific scenario. But generally, that is a better sales tactic, is to just communicate. Just communicate. Listen to what they want. Make sure that you can address it.
Exactly.
And go. Like, even when I talk to clients these days, I don't sell them anything. I just listen. I'm like, say, hey, tell me what you're looking to do, and I'll tell you if I can help you. And that's it.
That's exactly how I do my calls. Yeah, it's the same thing. I'm like, okay, so what are you thinking? What were you looking to do? I went on an appointment the other day, and like one of the first questions, and I know like a lot of people who will go through like, oh, this is how you should set up a listing appointment. It was a listing appointment with a seller. I came in, we did the tour of the house, and I said, okay, how much money are you looking to get? I worked backwards. I was like, let me figure out where you are mindset in terms of what price you're thinking. I know exactly what you're thinking, and then I can process in my mind, okay, well, what can I do for you now that I know this is what you want to do? How am I going to know what approach is going to work best for you if I don't even know where you're at? Like, I can go through and tell you, here's all the things that I can offer. I don't know what's going to be valuable to you until you tell me, and I can assess like, oh, crazy, overpriced. All right, here's what you're going to have to do. Or, okay, you're right on target. Here's the best way for me to solve that problem for you.
And Chris, on that subject, how many, I don't want to use the word crazy, but how many unrealistic sellers are you coming across, especially these days now that the market is shifting?
I would say it's about 50-50. Okay. One out of every two people that I meet with. Because even these people that I met with over the weekend, when I was like, oh, what price are you thinking? They hit the price right on the head in terms of like, oh, this is what we were thinking, but we would like this. And I was like, oh, so why is it like a $75,000 gap? Yeah. I'm like, you were right with the first number.
But they have an understanding of...
Yeah, but that's part of your job.
But that sounds like the perfect client, right?
Yeah, because it's like, okay, cool, you get it, but let me bring you back down to where you need to be. And then it's like, okay, I'm comfortable with that. Great.
And they probably respect you more for giving them the reality check.
I don't lie to people, especially at this point in my career. I don't have time to waste. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to tell you exactly what it's going to be. You're going to either agree to it or you're not, but I'm not going to waste my time.
Yeah, and we know, the classic agent that oversells and is like, and lists it for 10% more. It sits on the market, and that's how they get business, and then they don't close anything. That's not who you want to be, and I imagine that's not how you coach your team.
No. I mean, if somebody wants to overprice their house, I'll say, hey, here's the thing.
It's on you.
Yeah, it's on you. First, you got to find out their motivation. Are you actually motivated to sell? Because if you are motivated to sell, at some point, you're going to have to get with reality, and you're going to end up adjusting the price to get it sold. So it's like, hey, you want to overprice it? I'm telling you it's overpriced. Here's what we should do. In the event that you do want to overprice it, and we see that it's overpriced based on the way that the market's responding to it, but at some point, it's going to be like, all right, are you ready to pull the Band-Aid off and put it at the price that it needs to be so it can sell? Great. Now we can move forward.
And as long as they do agree.
Yeah.
But I imagine that you get some kickback here and there.
Yeah, some people are like, no, and I'm like, all right, I'm not the right agent for you.
Yeah. Peace.
But I think that also kind of makes people feel like, wait, really? You don't want my listing? I'm like, I don't want to waste my time.
Yeah.
Like for me, honestly, I'm like, I could rather be at home laying in my bed watching Netflix than...
Because you're not going to sell it anyway.
Yeah,
so
and why put money into it if I know it's not going to sell?
But someone that's a little bit more desperate or doesn't have as much business will take that time. And unfortunately for consumers, they don't know how to... A lot of them don't know how to tell the difference between an experienced agent that isn't desperate and one that is, especially if they present well, they got the gift of gab. It's... which is why a lot of people, not just on your side of the business, but my side of the business, have a very poor reputation.
Yep.
Because the barrier to entry is very, very small.
It's
very
so bad.
small. Yeah,
man, it's so bad.
I'm fortunate that, I'm awesome. We close all these loans. We're so great. But, I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have a mentor.
Yeah.
And I didn't have someone that really built me up, or several people that really built me up. And I think that's something that's missing from the business. But I think I think people are starting to realize that you need some type of leadership to really succeed and to grow. So I think that's I wanted to ask you, where do you see the business going in terms of trends? Do you see that as well? That's growing mentorship and people understanding that they need a team lead?
Yeah, definitely. I see a lot of growth in a lot of teams just across the board, all the different brokerages. I think that's the new model that people are really starting to buy into as a whole. I think it's because within the individual brokerages as a whole, it gives that sense of family within the bigger family.
Yeah.
So it's we're the siblings within the family, and the brokerage is the overall family.
That's such a great way to describe it. I'm going to steal that.
I just came up with that. Damn, that was good.
Nice, Chris. Yeah, that's excellent. Let's say that you're an agent or even a loan officer brand new to the business. You just got your license. You're doing your own thing. You have no idea. The exams don't prep us how to get business, right? It's just to pass a test.
Yeah.
And to manage the system, manage relationships, you really need that. Otherwise, you're screwed. Unless you're a freak of nature. And don't get me wrong, there are some that just figure it out. They know what to do. They're fine. But otherwise, they're screwed.
Yeah. It's so crazy, especially dealing with some agents that I know are new. You have conversations with them and then you hear the stuff that they kind of bring back to you, even in negotiations. And I'm like, oh, you're so new. This is so annoying. But it's not they don't know that they don't know that what they're doing is wrong. And it gets frustrating because I'm like, why are you coming back to me with this nonsense? Here's what you should be saying to your clients because this is how it goes. And it's if you don't have that mentorship, if you don't have that leadership, you don't know, and you'll let your clients dictate how the transaction goes, and you're probably never going to get anywhere because the average person doesn't know how the home buying process goes. So if you're the
most people in the business don't have it.
Yeah.
Man. Even people that've been
most of the professionals, they don't even know how to do the transactions properly. So if you're allowing your client to dictate to you oh, well, my client told me to do this, it's pull up your pants, tighten your belt and stand firm. Tell them this is how it goes. Set the expectation so they're not telling you oh, go do this, go do that. And when it blows up, it's dead deal because you don't know how to communicate with your clients.
So it's funny that you said that. I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago and the guy asked me Ben, what's your superpower? And I said my superpower is politely slapping clients and telling them how it's gonna go. But the thing is it takes balls to do that.
Yeah.
And it's not, when I say slap them, I'm not saying I'm insulting them or I'm just giving them a reality check. It's okay, we want this done. And again, don't get me wrong, we have great everything, but with that said, there are so many variables in a real estate transaction, especially in New York. Like, who do we have involved? Title, a
Attorneys,
buyer's agent, seller's agent, seller's
attorney,
attorneys, buyer's attorney,
home
mortgage
inspector,
company, home inspector, loan officer, loan processor,
appraiser.
You know, there are so many people involved that, you know, I always say, like, hope for the best, but keep in mind that it may not go the exact way that you see it on TV.
Yeah.
And that's normal.
Yeah.
You know, it's, I would say not every deal, but a lot of transactions, there's always some type of hiccup. And some of them are big, some of them are small. And the worst thing that we can do as professionals, especially when, like, our clients get all anxious and freak out if, like, a slight hiccup comes up. And let's say it's something small, that the appraisal was scheduled instead of Tuesday. I'm just making this up. The appraiser canceled and they have to do the appraisal on Wednesday, something very basic.
Yeah.
And then everyone freaks out. It's like, yeah, and if you as an agent or a loan officer, like, freaks out with your client, it's just gonna enable them. Exactly. Yeah. So when, like, clients call you up and they freak out and stuff like that, I'm just like, yeah, they reschedule for tomorrow. No big deal.
That's like probably one of my biggest things. Setting the expectation, keeping people calm. I think a lot of people say that. They're like, oh, you're so patient. I never see you mad. And I'm like, I don't know how you never see me mad. I'm like, I'm always mad.
Really? I've never seen you mad.
Yeah, see? But I'm like, I'm always angry because people piss me off. But I don't let people see that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what helps me kind of keep people grounded because everybody's always freaking out.
Well, I think you also know that it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Why are you going to let someone, like, get you angry?
Yeah.
I'm the same way, man. I get frustrated from stupid things.
Yes.
But getting annoyed isn't going to help me. It's not going to help the transaction in any way. It's just like, okay, this is the way it is. We move on.
Yeah.
On to the next.
Yeah, I get annoyed, but I don't stay annoyed. And I don't let other people get too crazy because a lot of people be like, end of the world, right? And I'm like, no. They're like, you sure? And I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. Just calm down. Yeah. Calm down and stay positive.
And it's literally something that I say to people, you know, when we're having these conversations, when issues come up, I'm like, okay, this is the solution. And sometimes you have to say the same thing like 3-4 times for them to get it.
Yep.
And, like, I'll even say, like, if you want me to, I can over dramatize this and make you, like, really anxious and scared for the next 3-4 days.
If you like.
And it'll all be for nothing. Or we could just, like, go on with the day. It's up, how do you want to play it? And they're like, okay, Ben, good point. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
And again, you got to keep them calm. Chris, question for you, man.
Yeah.
What trends as a realtor are you seeing from the loan officer side of the business this year compared to last year?
Ooh, now are you talking more so in terms of how transactional or just overall?
Everything. So how are they behaving during the transaction differently now, or I should say, how are we behaving? But I don't include myself with those guys.
You're not like them.
Yeah. So not just during the transaction, but also their approach to getting business from you guys.
I feel like they're, I don't want to say aggressive in like a bad way, but more persistent.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, they're more persistent. I believe that it is due to the fact that obviously interest rates are up. Now that the interest rates are up, less people are refinancing. So all the people relying on their refinance business are now like, I got to go back into sales. And who has the buyers? Yeah. The realtor. So it's like, let me be nice to you now. Send me some business.
Yeah, they were rude a year ago.
Yeah, and I was like, leave me alone. I'm never going to answer your calls. We got a deal together. Who cares? I don't care, whatever. I got so much business, so busy, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, hey, want to go to lunch? I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah. It's like, too late. You should have done that a year ago.
Yeah.
I even made like a TikTok about it like a year ago saying, like me just chilling, because I had a 70-30 split, 70% purchase transactions, 30% refis. The majority of the business was 90% refis over the past couple of years. So it's my bread and butter. And it's the way, as a loan officer, if you want to survive long term, that has to be your bread and butter. But another question, Chris, is in terms of if a loan officer is to approach you for business, and this is like for LOs entering the business, both for me, people at Madison, other companies, what is a good way for a loan officer to approach you for business in a way that doesn't piss you off or waste your time?
I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people are very persistent and they'll call. And I'm like, dude, I'm busy. Like, send me a text with what it is that you need.
Right.
Or my personal favorite is DM me on social media. I love that. Because I feel like that's like the new way to connect with people. It's like, all right, especially if I don't know you. Because it's like, now I get to see kind of a little bit of who you are. And, you know, not to say like, oh, I'm like the best and you need to come correct. But it's just more so like you should have some sort of a presence there if you want to approach somebody. Because if you're reaching out to me, I need to like figure out like, okay, do you know what you're doing? Are you savvy?
It's a way for you to get to know them.
Yeah.
Because like you see their profile.
It's like an icebreaker.
Yeah, exactly. I get a lot of agents saying that they're sick of the DMs, right?
Really?
That the DMs are driving them insane.
Are these men or are these women? Because maybe women get it more than men.
Yeah, great point. It's mostly women. Mostly women. Yeah, it's part of the business. A lot of the female realtors that I interview, I mean, they won't say it on camera, but they tell me off camera like they're sick of creepy dudes. Just
I have them. It's like all girls on my team, and they tell me all the time. I'm like, don't waste your time,
Chris. You just reminded me. I had some creepy guy actually. This was 2 nights ago.
No way.
He started messaging me just like about, he's like, I'm local, I live in New York, like, how long have you been a mortgage broker for? So I thought, okay, like, maybe this is like an elderly gentleman, probably in his like 60s or 70s. So I figured it was just like a lonely elderly gentleman that was bored and wanted to talk to someone, and I, asking about the business. And it was getting late, I forgot, maybe it was like 11 or 12 o'clock, and I was just like, okay, man, nice chatting with you, have a good night. Because one of those conversations where like I wasn't pushing the conversation forward to try and like end it, but he kept doing it, so I had to cut it off. And as I said, like, have a good night, he starts talking about underwear.
What?
It's like, yeah, and there was no like mention of underwear or clothes or anything. I forgot what he said. I wish I didn't. I gotta unblock it just to see what he said. But like immediately, like I just blocked the guy. It's like
it's like, I see where this is going.
Yeah, yeah. So
that's awkward.
So we get it too. We get creepers as well. Us.
Oh
men.
no, I've gotten some creepy DMs myself too, and I'm like, I actually got a text message the other day. And I was like, what the hell numbers? I blocked it immediately also. It was like an advertisement for like some sort of a porn show. And I'm like, what the hell? Like no text. It was just a picture, like a picture of an invitation to something. And I'm like, how did I get this? I'm like, what number is this? This is so random. I'm like, who's selling my information?
I was going to say one of your enemies probably like put it in.
I'm like, oh, this is terrible.
Chris, everyone freaking loves you.
Man,
okay, Chris. Final thoughts, because we are at time.
Oh, yeah.
Final thoughts or anything, advice that you want to give for agents, loan officers, sellers, buyers. What wisdom can you leave the people with?
Always focus on bringing value to people. Put other people first, and it will pay off in your business for agents and lenders, and for your average buyers and sellers, your everyday buyers and sellers. Please choose to work with an agent that knows what they're doing and trust them. Please, trust them.
I need you to elaborate on that. How do they know if the agent knows what they're doing?
Ask them questions. Ask them questions and really check out their resume. Check out their resume, and my favorite thing is, maybe not, because some people pretend on social media. I was going to say check out their social media, but I know that doesn't really tell the full story all the time. Check their resume. Ask them questions. You'll be able to tell somebody knows. Yeah, you'll be able to tell somebody knows what they're talking about if you ask them a lot of questions.
I like it.
For sure.
And one final thing, where again can people find you?
Find me on Instagram. That's the best way to find me. On Instagram, at Chris Your Realtor, or you can find my team, The Iconic Team, at The Iconic Team on Instagram. Either one.
Boom, sucker. Chris, thanks, man.